Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal in the shadowy aftermath of a shocking crime at General Hospital. Tension grips Port Charles as the investigation into Drew Cain's death takes center stage. His murder was not a random act of violence, it was calculated, personal, and deliberate. The release of the official promo for the week of September 1st threw 5 sent shockwaves through the fanbase, revealing 6 initial suspects tied to Drew's fatal shooting. But these 6 are merely the beginning. Their names were not selected at random. The writers of General Hospital have made a deliberate choice to shine the spotlight of suspicion on these specific individuals, setting the stage for a complex and emotionally charged unraveling of motives, secrets, and long-standing vendettas. Each of the 6 suspects carries with them a shadowed past, a potential motive, or a personal grievance sealing threads that might have drawn them into the deadly events surrounding Drew's demise. Some are linked to Drew through history, others have more recent reasons to see him silenced. The public revelation of these names is not just a narrative device, it is an invitation into a psychological maze, where every glance and every moment of hesitation might reveal deeper truths. This initial list is not the final word, it is merely the opening of a much wider net, one that will continue to expand as new evidence surfaces, and other once trusted faces begin to raise red flags. What the promo does so skillfully is plant doubt. By isolating these 6 characters as prime suspects, General Hospital is not just delivering shock value, it is forcing the audience to re-evaluate every interaction, every alliance, and every unresolved tension. But the story doesn't stop there. Beneath the surface, other suspects are waiting to emerge, figures whose motives may be buried beneath layers of manipulation, deceit, or desperation. As the investigation unfolds, it will become increasingly clear that no one is truly above suspicion, and that in the fractured landscape left behind by Drew's murder, the most dangerous enemies might be the ones no one saw coming. The first suspect, Michael Corinthos, portrayed by Rory Gibson, emerges as the final suspect revealed in the chilling promo for the week of September 15th. And his appearance at the end of the sequence is no coincidence. By placing Michael in the final frame of suspicion, the narrative ensures that his involvement, whether real or perceived, will be scrutinized with intense focus. The positioning is deliberate, signaling to viewers that Michael's role in the unfolding murder mystery is not only critical, but potentially explosive. As the investigation into Drew Cain's death gains momentum, Michael now finds himself under a microscope, his every move, motive, and memory dissected for clues. Michael's inclusion in the suspect lineup stems from a long-simmering resentment and a personal grudge that was far from subtle. His hatred for Drew wasn't hidden, it was palpable, fueled by rivalry, betrayal, and perhaps even fear. In a world where business, legacy, and loyalty intersect in dangerous ways, Michael had every reason to want Drew out of the picture. The question the police are now forced to confront is disturbingly simple. Just how far would Michael go to eliminate an obstacle that stood in his way? His name is now etched into a growing list of people with both motive and opportunity, and his proximity to the victim makes the suspicion surrounding him even harder to ignore. It is important to understand, however, that in the world of compelling mystery storytelling, being a suspect doesn't necessarily mean being guilty. What it does mean is that Michael's narrative is now entwined with Drew's final moments, whether he was involved directly or not. The very architecture of a murder mystery thrives on casting doubt and playing with perception. Viewers are meant to question what they see, to distrust confessions, and to second-guess even the most convincing alibis. Michael may indeed be innocent, but his troubled relationship with Drew makes him an ideal candidate for suspicion. His emotional volatility, coupled with a high-stakes family dynamic, ensures that even the most innocent gesture could be misinterpreted or worse, manipulated by those looking to frame him or hide the real killer's identity. The presence of red herrings is not just expected, it's essential. The journey through this investigation will not be a straight line. Instead, it will twist through lies, aversions, and confrontations that force characters and viewers alike to confront uncomfortable truths. Michael's inclusion as the final suspect suggests that some of those diversions will revolve heavily around him. He may take center stage in a sequence of false leads, damning evidence, or emotionally charged confessions that test the boundaries of justice and loyalty in Port Charles. But that's the nature of the game. Every misstep, every wrong turn, every moment of misplaced trust is part of a larger design that promises to pull back the curtain on a stunning and complex truth. Ultimately, Michael's role in this storyline is a calculated narrative gambolion that draws from his past, magnifies his present, and leaves his future in question. Whether he is a pawn, a mastermind, or a scapegoat remains to be seen. What is certain, however, is that with Michael now in the crosshairs, General Hospital has no intention of making the path to justice an easy or obvious one. The twists have just begun. The second suspect, Curtis Ashford, portrayed by Donald Turner, is another prominent name featured in the official weekly promo as a suspect in the murder of Drew Kane, a revelation that should come as little surprise to anyone closely following recent events in General Hospital. His inclusion is not only narratively justified but also emotionally charged, especially given the lingering tension and unresolved confrontations between Curtis and Drew in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. In fact, one of the most damning pieces of circumstantial evidence working against Curtis is the fact that he recently issued a chilling threat directly to Drew, a moment that now takes on a much darker tone in hindsight. In a town where words often foreshadow fatal consequences, Curtis's heated exchange could very well be interpreted as the precursor to something far more sinister. Curtis has long been portrayed as a man of principle, someone guided by his fierce sense of loyalty to those he loves. But that same loyalty, when weaponized by desperation or fear, can quickly evolve into a dangerous form of justification. Curtis has repeatedly proven that he will do whatever it takes to protect his family, and that unwavering resolve could be the very thing that now places him squarely in the sights of the Port Charles Police Department. The investigators at PCPD are well aware that a father's instinct to defend his home can, under the wrong circumstances, turn into a motive for violence. As they piece together the timeline of Drew's final days, Curtis's recent threats, his proximity to high-stakes tensions, and his erratic emotional state all form a narrative that cannot be ignored. This suspicion casts a long shadow, not only over Curtis himself but over the people closest to him, especially his daughter Trina, already burdened with personal turmoil and concern for her mother Portia's stability. Trina may now be forced to face an even more terrifying question: what if the man she calls her father crossed a line that can't be undone? While Trina has always admired Curtis for his strength and conviction, the possibility that he may have been involved in Drew's death could leave her reeling, her trust shaken to its core. The idea that Curtis could have resorted to lethal measures, whether in a calculated move or a moment of fervor, could create an emotional rift that the Ashford family may never fully recover from. Moreover, Trina's spiraling doubts may not be limited to Curtis alone. As the investigation deepens and secrets begin to surface, she might begin to question the integrity of both her parents. Portia, already entangled in past lies and moral gray areas, could become a secondary figure of suspicion, not necessarily for pulling the trigger, but for what she may know, conceal, or have influenced behind the scenes. In a town where silence can be as damning as action, Trina could soon find herself at the heartbreaking crossroads of doubting not just her father's innocence, but the moral compass of her entire family unit. What makes Curtis's placement on the suspect list so potent is not just the plausibility of his involvement, but the ripple effect it causes in the emotional architecture of the show. His potential guilt doesn't exist in a vacuum. It threatens to destabilize the relationships that have defined him. His bond with Trina, already fragile at times, could fracture under the weight of suspicion. His connection with Portia could deteriorate into paranoia and blame. And even his standing in the broader community as a respected figure of strength and clarity could be tarnished beyond repair. In the larger tapestry of this murder mystery, Curtis's role is a masterclass in layered suspicion. Whether or not he is truly guilty, his actions, demeanor, and past behavior make him an undeniably compelling figure in the unfolding drama. His involvement forces viewers to ask uncomfortable questions about justice, protection, and how far someone should be allowed to go for the sake of family. And if the truth turns out to be more complicated than anyone expected, Curtis may find himself at the center of a storm that no amount of good intentions can shield him from. The third suspect, Nina Reeves, portrayed by Cynthia Watrous, has officially entered the crosshairs of the murder investigation surrounding Drew Kane, a development that feels not only logical but deeply rooted in recent emotional and psychological tensions. Her name being added to the suspect list is hardly shocking for longtime viewers of General Hospital, as Nina has been increasingly volatile and unpredictable in the wake of her ever-deepening family conflicts, particularly those involving Willow and the contentious relationship She's tried so desperately to mend. But what elevates her to serious suspect status is a moment that fans remember all too well, a threat. A clear, unambiguous threat made directly to Drew, a chilling declaration that she could, or would, end his life. In any real-world investigation, such a statement would be treated as damning premeditation. In Port Charles, it becomes a flashing red signal to both the authorities and the audience that Nina may have crossed a line that even she can't walk back from. For Nina, the idea of harming Drew is not rooted in ambition or greed, but in something far more primal: maternal protection. Her recent arc has been defined by a fierce, almost desperate need to reclaim her place in Willow's life. A mission constantly thwarted by the emotional walls Drew helped build between mother and daughter. Drew, in many ways, became the symbol of everything Nina lost: her access to her child, her redemption, and even her perceived identity as a mother. When cornered, Nina has often operated with a dangerous emotional intensity, and the concept of a mama bear being driven to extremes is a recurring psychological trigger in her behavior. While it remains to be seen whether she truly acted on her words, the idea that Nina may have attempted to eliminate Drew as a threat to protect Willow's peace and future is not beyond reason. Given her open hostility toward Drew and the emotional volatility she's displayed in recent months, it's only natural that the PCPD would cast a wide net and scrutinize Nina's movements on the night of the murder. They will dig into her alibi, cross-reference timelines, and search for any inconsistencies that might betray a deeper truth. Nina is not just a name on a list, she's someone with both motive and a prior history of manipulative decisions. This combination makes her not only a suspect worth pursuing but a potential linchpin in the larger mystery if the pieces begin to fall in her direction. Yet even if Nina is ultimately cleared of direct involvement in Drew's death, her entanglement in the case may only deepen. Her emotional instincts, especially when it comes to protecting those she loves, could lead her down another dangerous path: obstruction. If Nina suspects that Willow or anyone else close to her was involved in the crime, there's a real possibility she would go to great lengths to cover for them. Whether by destroying evidence, lying to authorities, or manipulating witnesses, Nina's need to shield her loved ones could place her in legal jeopardy, even if she never pulled the trigger herself. This opens a complex ethical and emotional dimension to Nina's role in the storyline. She is not just a suspect based on motive, she's a potential liability in the search for justice. Her version of right and wrong has always been deeply subjective, shaped more by personal grief and desperation than by any consistent moral code. If protecting Willow or another loved one means compromising the truth, Nina may convince herself that such a choice is justified. That kind of rationalization could have devastating consequences not only for the investigation but for her already fragile standing in the community. Nina's placement on the suspect list also serves a larger narrative function. She is a polarizing figure, someone who evokes both sympathy and suspicion. The audience has seen her at her most vulnerable, but also at her most calculating. This duality makes her presence in the murder arc especially compelling, because her guilt or innocence is almost secondary to the damage she's capable of causing simply by being involved. The idea that she might not be the killer but could still derail the investigation is a testament to how volatile and emotionally loaded her character has become. As General Hospital moves forward with its layered and psychologically intricate murder mystery, Nina stands as one of its most unpredictable figures. Whether she's a red herring, a misguided protector, or someone truly capable of murder in the name of maternal vengeance, one thing is clear: her involvement will not be simple. And her presence in the narrative will continue to provoke tension, suspicion, and emotional chaos at every turn. The fourth suspect, for Willow Tate, portrayed by Caitlin McMullen. The evolving murder investigation surrounding Drew Kane now casts an uncomfortable and potentially devastating shadow over her as well. While she may not have appeared in the initial suspect reveal, there is an undeniable undercurrent running through her recent behavior that suggests her role in Drew's fate could be far more complicated and far more dangerous than anyone initially imagined. As the emotional wreckage of Drew's death ripples through Port Charles, the spotlight is slowly beginning to turn toward Willow, whose erratic emotional state and deeply fractured sense of trust could ultimately make her a central figure in one of General Hospital's most haunting mysteries. In the weeks leading up to Drew's murder, Willow had been spiraling in ways both subtle and overt. The once gentle, grounded nurse had grown increasingly unrecognizability, withdrawn, emotionally unpredictable, and vulnerable to intense outbursts. While many attributed this to lingering health concerns, trauma, and stress from her familial battles, it's become harder to deny that something deeper and more destructive may be driving her descent. Her relationships with the people closest to her, especially Drew, have suffered under the weight of mounting tension and unspoken betrayal. What was once a bond forged in mutual support and shared loss had deteriorated into a fragile, combustible arrangement filled with blame, disappointment, and unresolved resentment. Drew, for his part, had become a symbol of everything that had gone wrong in Willow's life. From the erosion of her marriage to the confusion surrounding her family dynamics, Drew was increasingly viewed not as a protector but as a manipulator whose actions, however well-intended they may have seemed, had irreversible consequences. He represented the gatekeeper between Willow and her sense of control, a man who inserted himself into decisions that should have belonged to her. Whether it was influencing her relationship with Nina or navigating complex legal matters on her behalf, Drew often made choices that left Willow feeling powerless, unheard, and cornered. For someone already battling internal demons, that sense of loss and helplessness may have eventually transformed into something darker: rage. Willow's mental state in recent episodes has hinted at instability, moments where her eyes flashed with confusion and pain, where her voice trembled not just with fear but with fury. Viewers have witnessed her pushing away those who tried to help her, withdrawing into silence, and lashing out at unexpected moments. If someone like Nina can be characterized as the mama bear, desperate and volatile, then Willow is the wounded daughter, her pain buried beneath layers of quiet anguish that could, at any moment, erupt into something catastrophic. In a psychological thriller, this kind of emotional volatility is not just background noise, it's narrative fuel. It gives her the motive, the mindset, and the potential to act out in ways she herself may not even fully comprehend until it's too late. What makes Willow's position especially precarious is the possibility that she may not even remember or fully understand what she's capable of doing in a moment of emotional collapse. If Drew's death was the result of a crime of passion, something spontaneous and deeply personal, then Willow becomes an extraordinarily plausible suspect. Her love, her grief, and her betrayal are all tangled together, creating a mental and emotional minefield where one wrong step could lead to tragedy. And even if she wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, the question remains, did she incite it? Did she wish for it? Did she plant a seed of vengeance in someone else's mind, knowingly or not? Additionally, there is growing concern that Willow may be involved in some form of cover-up. If the truth about Drew's murder implicates someone she loves, Mikkel, Nina, or even herself, Willow's instinct to protect them could override her grasp of morality and legality. She might lie to the police, destroy evidence, or simply omit key details during questioning. Not because she is evil, but because she is traumatized and desperate. In this way, she doesn't need to be the direct cause of Drew's death to become a central antagonist in the story. Her choices, her silences, and her manipulations could all conspire to lead justice astray. What's particularly tragic about Willow's potential descent into this dangerous territory is how far she's fallen from the woman she once was. There was a time when she was seen as the moral compass of Port Charles, a steady and compassionate force even in the darkest hours. But trauma changes people. Loss warps judgment. And betrayal, especially by someone you once trusted with your heart, can give birth to a level of resentment and emotional chaos that shatters every boundary. As the investigation unfolds, Willow may not just be a supporting character in someone else's tragedy. She may be at the center of her own unraveling. Whether as a suspect, an accomplice, or simply a woman pushed to her psychological limits, Willow Tate's story is about to become far more complicated and far more dangerous than anyone could have predicted. The fifth suspect, Sonny Corinthos, portrayed by Maurice Benard, has long walked a razor's edge between anti-hero and outright criminal, and his recent actions have once again thrust him into the eye of a storm he may not be able to navigate so easily this time. The shocking shooting of John Jagger Cates on the Quartermain estate served as a grim reminder of just how far Sonny is willing to go when he believes a threat needs to be eliminated. The act wasn't just an impulsive reaction, it was a cold, calculated decision executed on sacred ground, a location symbolic of legacy, power, and deep-seated family ties. For someone like Sonny, who has always drawn his own moral boundaries in blood, that single moment of violence now casts a long, dark shadow over the murder investigation involving Drew Cain. It tells the authorities and the audience that when Sonny sees a threat, he doesn't hesitate to remove it by any means necessary. While Sonny's lethal confrontation with Jagger may not be directly tied to Drew's murder, it has irreversibly altered the way the Port Charles Police Department views him. It proves that Sonny is not merely capable of extreme violence, he is actively willing to carry it out when he believes it's justified. That alone makes him a high-priority suspect in the eyes of PCPD, particularly in a case where motive, opportunity, and personal history align with disturbing clarity. Although Drew and Sonny were not always adversaries, their relationship had grown increasingly strained, poisoned by layers of mistrust, resentment, and competing alliances that made each encounter more dangerous than the last. It's a dynamic ripe with emotional and menacing of which could have exploded into lethal action. The fact that Sonny had repeatedly vocalized his disdain for Drew in the weeks preceding the murder only intensifies suspicion. He wasn't subtle. He made it clear both to those around him and, perhaps more damningly, to Drew himself that he believed Drew was receiving far less punishment than he deserved. Whether fueled by business entanglements, personal betrayal, or simply Sonny's warped sense of justice, his animosity toward Drew had reached a boiling point. When someone with Sonny's violent history starts talking openly about someone getting what's coming to them, it's no longer just talk, it's potential intent. The authorities know this. They've seen Sonny act on less. What further complicates Sonny's position is the unpredictability of his current state of mind. In recent months, Sonny has shown signs of internal conflict, instability, and an increasingly frayed temper. His relationships have deteriorated. His trust in those closest to him has eroded. And his instinct to handle problems with force has resurfaced in full measure. This combination of emotional turmoil and criminal reflexes makes him an especially dangerous figure, not only capable of murder but of justifying it within his own twisted code. If he believed Drew was endangering someone he cared about, threatening his empire, or tarnishing his family name, there's a very real possibility that Sonny would have seen elimination as the only option. Of course, none of this confirms that Sonny is guilty, but General Hospital has always thrived on moral ambiguity and layered motivations. Sonny is a character built on contradiction, a loving father and ruthless enforcer, a protector and a predator. That duality makes him a perfect suspect in this storyline, because his guilt or innocence doesn't have to be black or white. He could be entirely innocent of Drew's murder and still be obstructing justice. He could have helped cover up the crime. He could know who did it and choose silence over cooperation. Or he could have done it himself and justify it as an act of necessary retribution. This is why the PCPD will undoubtedly bring Sonny in for questioning. His history, his recent violent act, and his vocal animosity toward Drew all create a profile that demands further scrutiny. And Sonny, ever the master of control and manipulation, may not take kindly to being on the defensive. His interrogation could be the spark that sets off a chain reaction of revelations, alliances breaking down, and secrets spilling into the open. The threat isn't just whether Sonny pulled the trigger, it's whether his pride and protective instincts will lead him to shield someone else who did. In the grander scope of the murder mystery arc, Sonny represents the embodiment of blurred lines between justice and vengeance. His character forces the audience to ask difficult questions. Can a man who commits one murder in self-defense be innocent in another? At what point does a pattern of behavior become a verdict in itself? As the truth surrounding Drew's death continues to unfold, Sonny Corinthos remains one of the most compelling, dangerous, and emotionally explosive figures under suspicion, capable of being the killer, the protector of the killer, or the next victim of the system he's long managed to evade. The sixth suspect, in the wake of Drew Cain's shocking shooting. The responsibility of uncovering the truth falls into the hands of two of Port Charles' most seasoned and intuitive investigators, Anna Devane and Dante Falconeri. Both carry a history of navigating complex criminal webs, and both understand that in a town like Port Charles, betrayal often hides in plain sight. With Drew's sudden and violent demise, the race to uncover his killer begins immediately, and as the official General Hospital promo for the week teases, several shadowy glimpses offer hints as to who may have pulled the trigger. Surprisingly, or perhaps not so surprisingly, one of the first names that emerges at the top of their suspect list is none other than Dr. Portia Robinson. Portia's inclusion as a prime suspect is a development that lands like a thunderclap, not because it's unfounded, but because of what it implies. In recent weeks, Portia has been pushed to the brink emotionally, psychologically, and morally. Her once calm demeanor has been replaced by increasing moments of desperation and unpredictability. She has found herself locked in constant battle, whether protecting her daughter Trina from real and perceived threats, struggling with the complexities of her relationship with Curtis, or managing professional pressures that have bled over into her personal life. Through it all, Drew became yet another figure of disruption, someone whose actions and presence may have threatened the delicate balance Portia was trying to preserve. For a woman who prides herself on maintaining control, Drew could easily have been seen as the one variable she could no longer afford to tolerate. Anna and Dante, both experienced in reading between the lines, will undoubtedly note Portia's recent erratic behavior. Her public confrontations, terse conversations, and defensive posture have made her an increasingly suspicious figure. If Portia truly felt that Drew posed a threat to Trina, to her family's safety, or to the fragile peace she was trying to maintain, then the question becomes less about whether she had motive and more about whether she finally snapped. Could a woman who has dedicated her life to saving others find herself justifying a deadly act in the name of protection? Could fear and frustration override her Hippocratic oath, transforming a healer into a killer? As the investigation deepens, the emotional toll on Trina Robinson becomes impossible to ignore. The young woman has already endured so much from Lee's secrets, relationship upheavals, and life-altering revelations. Now, with Drew's death dominating the headlines and her mother's name quietly circulating in whispered suspicion, Trina finds herself once again at the center of a storm she didn't create. The promos suggest that Trina will be visibly shaken in the upcoming episodes, her fear and confusion rising as she receives news updates that suggest her mother could be involved in something far more sinister than she ever imagined. This emotional unraveling is not simply about losing Drew, it's about the horrifying possibility that someone Trina loves and trusts may be responsible. For a daughter who has already struggled with questions of identity and belonging, being forced to confront the idea that her own mother could be involved in murder is a devastating blow. It challenges everything she believes about loyalty, family, and truth. Trina's mind will likely spiral through every recent memory with Portia, every cryptic look, every tension-filled moment, every emotional outburst, evaluating them through the lens of fear and suspicion. She won't just be asking if Portia could have done it, she'll be asking if she would have done it. And more disturbingly, whether she herself missed the warning signs. This dynamic introduces a deeply personal, emotionally loaded layer to the broader murder mystery. The fallout from Drew's death isn't just about uncovering a killer, it's about the emotional collateral damage inflicted on those who are left behind. Trina's journey through grief, doubt, and fear will likely parallel the investigation's own twists and turns, making her both a witness and a silent victim of whatever secrets are about to surface. Her role in this storyline will not be passive. She may become a key figure who either uncovers the truth or is forced to choose between protecting her mother and exposing a possible crime. In the larger narrative architecture of General Hospital, this storyline pushes the boundaries of moral ambiguity and emotional conflict. Portia Robinson, once considered a figure of unwavering strength and clarity, now stands under a cloud of suspicion that could change the course of her life forever. And Trina, who has fought so hard to define herself apart from the chaos around her, may find that some battles must be fought not against the outside world but within her own heart. As Anna and Dante close in on the truth, the question becomes not only who killed Drew Kane but how many lives will be shattered in the process of finding out. As the murder investigation surrounding Drew Kane continues to unfold, one thing becomes increasingly clear: the pool of suspects in Port Charles is far from limited to the handful of individuals highlighted in the initial promos. General Hospital has long mastered the art of crafting intricate, layered storylines filled with emotional tension, shifting loyalties, and dark secrets, and this murder mystery is no exception. While a few characters have been thrust into the spotlight early on, the deeper truth may lie hidden in the shadows, where lesser suspected individuals are quietly carrying secrets, grudges, or motives that haven't yet come to light. With that in mind, Several other prominent figures within the fabric of Port Charles society are poised to come under scrutiny as the investigation deepens, and each brings with them a unique set of circumstances that could turn the case on its head. Alexis Davis, portrayed by Nancy Lee Gren, is no stranger to moral complexity or high-stakes drama. Though she's reinvented herself many times from lawyer to editor to conflicted mother, Alexis remains a woman driven by principle, but also capable of making deeply flawed decisions in moments of emotional crisis. Her long-standing connection to Drew, both professionally and through familial extensions, places her within the orbit of suspicion. If Alexis believed Drew was a threat to one of her daughters, or if she discovered something incriminating about him that could damage her family's reputation, her sense of justice could have taken a darker, more personal turn. Additionally, if she is aware of someone else's involvement, her legal acumen and history of moral compromise could easily lead her to obstruction or complicity under the guise of protection. Carly Spencer, played by Laura Wright, remains one of Port Charles' most polarizing and emotionally charged characters. Her past entanglements with Drew are both romantic and strategic, making her an unavoidable person of interest in the aftermath of his death. Carly has made no secret of her loyalty to Drew, often defending him publicly and standing beside him in times of adversity. But in soap opera fashion, passionate loyalty can often mask deeper conflicts. If Carly discovered a betrayal, a lie, or a threat from Drew that we've yet to see on screen, it's not beyond possibility that she might have lashed out directly or indirectly in a way that contributed to his downfall. Even if she's not the perpetrator, Carly's volatile nature and talent for inserting herself into every major storyline make her a key figure that detectives and viewers will be watching closely. Tracy Quartermaine, portrayed by the ever-formidable Jane Elliott, is another name that can't be ignored in the search for truth. Ruthless when it comes to preserving the Quartermaine name, Tracy has proven time and again that she is capable of manipulating events behind the scenes to protect her family's interests. Drew, having been increasingly involved in Quartermaine business and legacy affairs, may have crossed an invisible line that Tracy was unwilling to allow. Whether motivated by business, pride, or an effort to protect the family from scandal, Tracy's capacity for strategic elimination cannot be discounted. Her ability to work from the shadows, pulling strings without getting her hands dirty, makes her a classic dark horse in any murder investigation. Martin Gray, played by Michael Lee Knight, brings a different kind of intrigue to the table. As a legal mind with a long history of bending rules and playing both sides of a moral divide, Martin's involvement in Drew's death could manifest not through action, but through silence, manipulation, or carefully orchestrated misdirection. If Drew possessed information that could damage Martin professionally or personally, or if Martin was acting on behalf of a client or loved one, his involvement might be more cerebral but no less impactful. His calm exterior and calculated speech have always suggested a man with secrets, and in a storyline this layered, that kind of ambiguity is a red flag. Then there's Jen Sidwell, played by Carlo Rota, whose presence in recent months has been nothing short of sinister. As a mysterious figure with connections to multiple underground operations and morally questionable partnerships, Sidwell is the kind of character who thrives in the margins of chaos. If Drew posed a threat to Sidwell's operations or had stumbled upon information that could expose him, it would be entirely plausible for Sidwell to orchestrate Drew's murder either by his own hand or through a carefully hired intermediary. And like other suspects driven by personal emotion, Sidwell's potential motive would be pure business gold, calculated, and without remorse. That makes him particularly dangerous, and particularly worth watching as the storyline progresses. And the list doesn't end there. In a town as complex and deeply interconnected as Port Charles, nearly every character holds a thread that could, under the right pressure, unravel into something criminal. Friends, lovers, rivals, and enemies, many of whom are currently flying under the radar, may find themselves drawn into the investigation as new evidence emerges and old secrets resurface. This is the hallmark of a slow-burn murder mystery. No one is ever truly safe from suspicion, and even the most trusted figures can have the darkest motivations. As Anna Devane and Dante Falconeri pursue their investigation with relentless focus, these secondary suspects may become central figures. With each interview, each uncovered clue, and each confrontation, the truth will inch closer to the surface, but not without collateral damage. Relationships will be tested, alliances will be shattered, and reputations will crumble under the weight of half-truths and long-buried lies. For now, the audience is left to wonder, is the killer hiding in plain sight among these familiar faces? Or are they still waiting in the wings, ready to strike again if the truth comes too close? Either way, Port Charles is bracing for impact and no one is immune from the fallout.